Hey guys, what's up? It's me again, Tom from TTT Tom's Tech Time. Welcome to this new episode. Today I want to show you how to set up the camera of your DJI Mavic Zoom drone. I want to show you the best settings for cinematic results. Let's get this episode started. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to never ever miss any of my upcoming episodes. Again, stay tuned and enjoy the episode. Let's open up the camera menu by tapping at the icon right below the red shutter button. We find three submenus. Let's work our way through all of them, starting with the one that you usually only have to set up once. Therefore, click at the gear icon to open it up. First, enable the histogram. Once you do so, an extra window is gonna pop up and it displays if your footage is adequately lit, if it is too dark or too bright. Understanding the tool is simple. If the mountains can be found on the left side of the histogram, the footage is underexposed, saying too dark. If the mountains are at the right, then the footage is overexposed, saying too bright. Usually you want to keep the mountains in the middle of the histogram. The tool is beneficial and avoids the trouble that can occur due to our small and sometimes imprecise displays. Next, make sure to enable head LEDs auto turn off. Once the function is activated, the drone automatically switches off the front arm LEDs when hitting the record button. That way you can avoid disturbing reflections and weird colors caused by the drone's LEDs. Lock gimbal when capture should be enabled for photography purposes. It makes sure that while a photo is being recorded, the camera stays in place and does not move, even if the drone, for example, slightly rotates for some reason. But today we want to talk about videography mainly. It is critical that you turn on the Enable AFC mode. AFC stands for Autofocus Continuous. If you leave it disabled, the drone might change the focus during recordings, which is going to be visible and annoying, and you don't want that to happen. Once enabled, the mode makes sure that the drone only keeps on focusing while not recording. Next in line is the overexposed slide that often causes confusion in the drone community when being turned on by mistake. I have often read people complaining about the weird zebra lines and that their camera might be broken. Nope, that is luckily not the case. The zebra lines only show up when an area is way too bright. The harmless stripes warn you to adjust the camera settings for a more appropriately lit scenery. Honestly, I don't like the zebras. It is too annoying and I already use the histogram, so I leave this function turned off. Auto Sync HD photo and video caption are totally irrelevant for the results. Either turn them on or off, that is entirely up to you. Hyperlapse video frame is new and I'm not quite sure what it does, but it seems to, as the name already promises, only affect hyperlapses. Okay, let's just continue. Save Original opens up a submenu. In here you can select whether you want to save all panorama and hyperlapse photographs or if you are happy with the lower quality previews on the phone. I recommend to turn both of them on and select RAW. But be careful, taking many RAW photographs means using a lot of space from your microSD card too, just so you know. Let's head back. The grid submenu is interesting. In here you can turn on some lines that help you frame the perfect shot. I always use the standard grid lines to check if the horizon is level and to maybe check out the rule of thirds. You don't know what that is? The rule of thirds basically says that an object that you're filming should either be a bit more to the right or to the left side of an image, not right in the center, to make the composition look more interesting. Anyways, I think that the lines can be helpful and leave them turned on. Next are the center points. I used to work with them back in the days, but see no need to continue doing so anymore. Yes, you have plenty of different shapes that can mark the middle of the screen and sometimes they might even be helpful, but for typical flights, I leave them turned off. The anti-flicker submenu is essential for people who like to fly indoors with tungsten light. A wrong flicker can occur if you set this up wrong, and it can really ruin your whole shot. I recommend setting it to auto because the auto function really does a good job detecting in which region of the planet you are, and therefore it determines whether you need 50 Hz or 60 Hz automatically. The file index mode should be set to continuous. If you put it onto reset, the drone will always start naming the files, let's just say DJI 001, DJI 002, DJI 003, and so on over and over again. That can lead to confusion on your computer. In the worst case, you might even, by mistake, hit the replace button and overwrite some old files of yours when copying new ones to the very same folder. To avoid all kinds of trouble, just always make sure to set this to continuous. The peaking threshold function, once enabled, shows areas that are sharp and in focus covered by thin red lines. Of course, these lines won't be recorded. They are only on your display while filming. But again, I don't like tools that cover my view at all, just like with the zebra stripes. I leave this useful tool disabled and set it to none. The storage location should be set to, well, that actually depends on you. Ideally, you should set it to a fast microSD card with a large capacity, right? Alternatively, of course, you can save files on the 8 GB of internal storage that the drone features. You want to check out the best of the best microSD cards? There is a link in the description below this video. Check it out and you will find a guideline of mine on how to buy the perfect microSD card for drones. Format, internal storage, and reset camera settings are pretty self-explaining. Hallelujah, my friends, we're done with the first submenu. Let's right now take a look at the second submenu and apply some changes here and there. The video size menu smiles right at us when we look at the second camera submenu. Once we tap at it, we can select both the video resolution and the frame rate, saying with how many frames per second the camera is going to record. Ideally, you want to choose 4K, the highest resolution at 24 frames per second. That is the standard frame rate used in Hollywood. The German Klugscheißer inside me would now say that Hollywood actually rather films with 23.976 frames per second, but let's not listen to that Klugscheißer inside me. And for whatever reason, I am personally used to filming with 25 frames per second, and I'm going to stick with that. Once DJI enables 4K at 60 frames per second, that is going to be really cool, not only for being able to film slow motion footage, but for having a super fluid and smooth video in the end. Don't worry, you can film with higher frame rates of up to 120 frames per second already now, but only when selecting Full HD. And I highly recommend staying with 4K, even if you do not have a 4K screen. It is not only future-proof, and in 20 years you will still be able to watch awesome looking footage, but it is just so much sharper on any monitor. Video format is the name of the next submenu. In here we can pick either MP4 or MOV. As a Mac user, I like to choose MOV, but finally it really doesn't matter anymore. Back in the days, my Microsoft computer struggled less when recording MP4 files, but most modern computers should be able to work with either one of the formats. Just choose whatever you wish. The white balance submenu is the only one that you should check once before each flight. It is more important than you might think. I recommend never to choose auto. Pick the correct white balance that fits your current surrounding. In my case, I could either go with cloudy or sunny at the moment. The weather is kind of in between. But if you leave this on auto, your shots might have a different color tone from shot to shot, and fixing that in post-production is quite complicated and time-consuming. The style submenu is really important, but usually and gladly you only have to set that up once. I messed around a lot with the settings to find the overall sharpest and most accurate ones. Let's get started. The sharpness test unveiled that +1 is the safest option you can pick. It does not digitally over-sharpen your footage, nor does it wash out any lines. The contrast I set to -1 and the saturation I set to -2. If you really can't stand color grading and you really want to have the best results straight out of the camera, then you should apply the settings +1, 0 and -1. And those settings look good too, right out of the camera, and you can then start to maybe edit them a bit here and there, and then the results will look good too. What does the color menu offer us? Let's check it out. We can either film with the normal fully colored mode, or we can enable DCine-alike. The footage, if you choose DCine-alike, is going to look totally washed out, but on the computer you will see so many more details in both the shadows and the highlights. You can get a whole lot more out of your footage when selecting DCine-alike. But you don't have to. If you're either a bit lazy or if you are just a beginner and you have no clue what to do with color grading, then you can just pick the normal color profile that looks good too. Not as good as DCine-alike when you later on take a closer look at it in post-production, but it does the job too. So if you are lazy, then pick normal, and if you are a professional or an advanced pilot and cinematographer, then you should definitely go with DCine-alike. The camera video coding submenu either lets you pick the good old H.264 codec or the new H.265 Both are good, don't worry, the difference is not that visible. But while H.264 works flawlessly on almost all computers, I would not want to edit H.265 files on an older computer. Yes, in my eyes, H.265 delivers the better quality, but it is true too that it is a lot harder to play back H.265 files on a computer. It is really up to you. I just invested a fortune into this computer that stands right behind my bag, and for the next 2 years I will probably have to eat rice with ketchup only because, you know, there's nothing left for anything else. But on the other hand side, I can now flawlessly edit H.265 files. A product link, by the way, can be found in the description below this video. And yeah, by the way, we're done with the second submenu. Let's head to the last one. The last menu is the only one that you have to check out not only before each flight, but during each flight. It is simple. You either select auto and enjoy the flight, or you enable manual and enjoy the flight while recording amazing shots. It is totally up to you. Don't worry, on the Mavic 2 Zoom we can only change 2 settings, the ISO, kind of like the digital brightness, and the shutter speed. The rule for the ISO is simple. Keep it as low as possible and never go above 800, not even at night. Because if you do so, then the footage is gonna look all grainy and not professional anymore. If the ISO is low, then you're gonna have good results. Now what about the shutter speed? Ideally, and for the most cinematic amount of motion blur, you want to put it on a value that is twice your chosen frame rate. The footage is neither going to look washed out nor over-sharpened. If you have selected 24 frames per second, like most Hollywood productions, then you might notice that 48 as a shutter speed value is not available. Always choose the closest, in this case 50. But what happens now is that the image during daytime often looks way too bright. Take a look. Can we solve this somehow? ND filters are nothing but sunglasses for our drones. You basically screw them on, and then less light enters the camera's lens. That is the principle. There is no change in colors, there is no fancy effect. It only reduces the amount of light that hits the camera. And then we can lower the shutter speed and the image will look perfect. It won't look too bright anymore. Product links can be found in the description below the video for ND filters that fit the DJI Mavic 2 Zoom. And if you want to take a look at the guide that I wrote on how to use these filters and when to use which, check out tomstechtime.com/ND. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, fly safe. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to never ever miss any of my upcoming episodes. Again, don't forget to share this video on Facebook and wherever else you want. That's it. Over and out. Bye bye.